Hello, and welcome to the Hypno Travelers on the Magical Psyche Highway podcast. That's right. Your host and tour guide is Scott Prevett, a healer, hypnotist, and a magician. And your bus driver is Jason Gobelli, also a hypnotist, an entrepreneur, and a spiritual guide. Disclaimer, neither Jason, Scott, or any of our guests here today are licensed professional psychologists or psychiatrists. So please don't make any changes to any medication or treatments that you are currently on based on the conversation that you hear here today. Just hop on the bus and enjoy the ride. Trip with us on the Inner Revelation bus. That's right.
Hi, I'm Jason. Welcome back to the Hypno Travelers on the Magical Psyche Highway. We are excited today because we're not just going down one magical psyche highway, we're going down two that meets together and goes into a super highway. Aren't we, Scott? This is going to be interesting, huh?
Heck yeah, we got a great two guest tree today, so stand by.
That's right. That's right. So we're going to speak today with Jodie Solberg and Cormac Colleran, and it's going to be wonderful. So let's start with Jodie first, ladies first. Jodie, who are you and what do you do?
Okay, so like you said, Jodie Solberg, and I am a hypnotherapist and trainer. And my hypnotherapy career goes way back. And now that it's 2026, I've actually been a hypnotherapist for 25 years. So I started young, and I started when I was in graduate school for clinical psychology. I'm in the Pacific Northwest in the US, and kind of moved all over kind of the western parts of the US, but I went to grad school in Oregon and pretty much was, deciding right away that I wanted to be a hypnotherapist because I knew I wanted to be a therapist. But for me, it was a no-brainer to think, well, why wouldn't I want to help people get results faster? Why would I want people to just sit and talk in circles around their problems over and over again for years on end? And so that's how I got started. And it's been a long journey since then.
Well, now, while we're on this, you're much more than a hypnotherapist. Who are you really? So let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah. Well, so like I said, I grew up in the Northwest and so very outdoorsy. So I love your background, Jason. It looks very much like exactly where I live, which is wonderful. And so everywhere that I've lived, love outdoors, love mountains and water and all of those things. Grew up, you know, in a family that was very much into camping and fishing and doing all of those types of activities, as well as a very heavily sports family. So lots of professional athletes and things in my family. And the funny thing is, I was the least competitive probably of everyone. I'm just not a competitive person at all whatsoever. I was always more about just doing my best and doing what I wanted to do. And I was always really empathic and always helping people. So no one was surprised that I knew what I wanted to do when I grew up, that I knew that I wanted to help people and be that therapist. I was always that go-to person. Even when I was little, my mom thought it was really strange that people would just, like adults would just come up and start talking to me all the time. And when I was in high school, people were coming to me as a peer counselor. So it really was something that I always knew that I wanted to do and that I wanted to someday. I always said when I turned 40, I wanted to have my own private practice. So that's what I did. But up until then, I worked with a lot of court-appointed clients. I've always worked with people around trauma and addiction and anxiety. So a lot of abuse and cases with kids. That was always a big part of my heart. And so there was a lot of addiction and trauma and things running through these families generationally. And so that's kind of always been my passion, is to help other people and to help people not just change their lives, but affect their whole families. And I really saw that growing up in my family too, of, people who had histories of trauma and abuse and all of these things that made a decision to make a change. And I saw the trajectory of how that changed, our entire family. And so that really, I think, led into what I do now. and how I help people, and now how I help train people to help other people too.
Nice. So being in the Pacific Northwest, I'm sure your family is all excited that the Seahawks are the #1 seed in the playoffs.
Yes, it was actually really funny because so I'm president of our National Guild of Hypnotists chapter here in Washington, and I had so many people. We have a big event coming up on Saturday in honor of World Hypnotism Day, which was it was beginning of January, but we observe it the second weekend just because it's too close to New Year's otherwise for a big conference event. And I had so many people in Seattle tell me last weekend, I can't get tickets until I know if the Seahawks are playing. And so as soon as they won, but then they had a bye week, then everyone said, okay, now we can come and we can make it. So it's been interesting planning events around that because everything really does stop in Seattle when the Seahawks are, getting there. And they've only really done this, once before that I remember, and having to work around. So everyone is wearing the colors, everybody's planning their schedules around it. It's a really fun time because, Seattle teams traditionally aren't that successful. So when they are, it's a big deal.
Nice, nice. Okay, so now for a twist, we're going to take this bus and go hyperspeed, jump over, and go into Cormac's world for a second and go down Cormac's highway. Cormac, how are you?
I'm good, Jason. Very happy to be here. It's about 6:30 at night time where I am, and I'm in Dublin, Ireland, and I'm delighted to be here talking to you guys.
Well, so much for an element of surprise because you know what the first question is. So who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Cormac Colleran. I suppose I was able to preempt a little. So who am I? Well, I guess I'm a dad. I'm a dad of three small children. That's probably my #1 role in life. I'm also a hypnotherapist. I've been in this industry. I think now going back to about 2009, we had a kind of world recession back around then. We don't want to remember that stuff, but round about then, I used to work in the pharmaceutical industry. I worked with Pfizer. You probably have all heard of Pfizer. And even that was impacted, and I was laid off. And I always knew that that wasn't for me. And my path towards where I am today as a trainer and speaker and hypnotherapist started out as coaching. And so I started coaching, started training, I started business coaching and life coaching. And I guess what led me to hypnotherapy was working with people as a coach, setting out a nice plan of action, setting out, understanding obstacles and setting goals, and then seeing inertia with some clients and wondering, okay, why are you not taking these steps that you need to be taking? Why are you not doing the things that are good for you to be doing? And that led me to understanding and being curious, I guess, first of all, about the subconscious mind. And then that led me to learning about hypnotherapy. And once the hypnotherapy bug bites, it kind of bites and it holds on tight. And so I have been between coaching and hypnotherapy, I've been doing it. So that's what, 17 years now.
Brilliant move, moving from being a drug dealer to a therapist. That was a nice move.
I know, yeah. Handing it out there and taking it back in like this. Yeah.
Anyway, so that's wonderful, and thanks for that. So I'm gonna now ask you some other questions, and then we'll get back to Julie. So when did you first have that aha moment? That moment like, wow, I'm really going to be able to help people.
I suppose so. I wasn't sure until I guess it was after I actually helped someone. I was tentative about it. I was doing coaching and I was tentative about it. A lot of my earlier work was I was getting like training programs, so I trained people like I was doing business training because my degree, my college education was business and psychology. I think the first person that I helped quit smoking, and I started out by going to one of these. I don't know if you have them in the States. We used to have them 15 years ago a lot. A deal site they were called, so Groupon and Living Social. So these are ones that I can say I'm going to do quit smoking sessions that are going to be at a really cheap price, and then they'll put it out to their mailing list. So I got like about 30 people to do quit smoking, and I'm getting like less than $50 each for them. It wasn't really worth my time in terms of money, but it was worth an awful lot in terms of experience. And you're getting the people that, weren't willing to pay a proper price for it, and they were happy to pay a little price for it. And but I do remember the first person that I helped to quit, and he was a dad himself, and he was like I at the time they were coming to my apartment, and I was seeing them there, and I remember just that kind of sense from that, like he was so upset that he was still a smoker and that he's hiding it from his kids and hiding it from his wife and all of this. And I worked with him, and he threw his cigarettes in the bin before leaving, and I was like, wow, what just happened there? And I know like sometimes people can do that, but like just to see that mindset, like someone that like would never have thought doing that. And I mean, I'm here kind of trying to follow along a pattern, trying to follow something a little bit like this, hopefully this works. Hopefully when I say, do an eye lock, that his eyes stay locked and don't open. And so I'm doing all of this, and he can't open his eyes, he can't raise his hand off the table. And then he's like all excited at the end of the session, and he gets his cigarettes and he squashes them and he chucks them in the bin. And for me, that was like, okay, there's definitely something in this. I can get on board with this.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, let's skip back. We're teleporting from highway to highway here for a minute. So let's teleport back to Jodie's. So Jodie, you said you grew up going through a lot of things. So when did you really have that first aha moment that you were meant to help people?
So for me, I mentioned high school and being a peer counselor in high school, and it was one of our fellow students, one of my friends, passed away in a hiking accident, and it was really devastating for everyone in my school. I grew up in a really small town. I actually grew up half an hour outside the really small town, and so we all were really close growing up, and my teachers saw that people were coming to me for support, and everyone was converging in the big auditorium type of area. And I remember my teachers coming up to me and saying, we're noticing that this is happening. Would you like to do that? Would you like to, counsel your fellow students? And I said, yes, absolutely. And so they put me in more of an official role with that. And so that was the time where it was that aha, like, I can really make a difference for people. Before that, it was just like, that's just how it was. That's just, I was like that with my friends and family and different people. But that was the first official time of like, oh, I can actually do that as a job, as a career. And my one of my aunts, so I come from a whole line of nurses on my dad's side. So my grandmother and aunts and cousins and all these people are nurses, but one of them that I'm really, really close to and actually spent, the most of my time with and lived with for a couple of years during high school as well, became a social worker. And so she diverged from the path of everyone else. And I saw what she was doing and how she was making a difference as well. But I also saw that she was struggling financially, and she was helping people. And that's when that aha moment went, okay, I need to do this. This is what I want to do. And I need to keep going in school, or I need to figure out the thing to work for myself and not to work for the system, because I saw how hard she worked, but for so little. And so for me, that's when it all clicked. So it was kind of right in that kind of middle of high school time for me of like, oh, I can help people and I can make it a career.
Nice. Well, I noticed since you're talking about making things a career, you got the prestigious doctor significant name in front of you. So that said, who are your mentors? Who helped guide you and shape you who you are today?
Great question. So I had some wonderful mentors along the way. So I was super fortunate to have an instructor in graduate school. My initial degrees were psychology and sociology, and then I went to school for clinical psychology. And a lot of times people aren't exposed much to hypnotherapy. I had an instructor who was a hypnotherapist, and we had a hypnosis training school really close to our university, and that was an option as a course, was to go get certified in hypnotherapy. And so that was definitely one of my first mentors, and somebody that I thought, okay, I like the way these people think. I like the idea of, we want to help people to heal and then move forward. That was really important to me, is, let's not just hang out here, like I was saying, and talk about our problems. So that was a huge philosophy. I always say in grad school for psychology, they basically tell you to pick a religion. It's like, what do you believe? And what do you want to teach people for the rest of your career? And so for me, that just aligned so much. And then I have another mentor. So later, so fast forward, like I was saying, I had always said, oh, I want to have my own private practice. I had decided I wanted to work virtually. I was getting really burnt out with working with all the court-appointed clients. I was also doing coaching along with therapy work. So I was doing a whole mix, and I wanted to kind of move into this century. I wanted to be able to work with people online. I knew that I wanted to be able to help more people and to, widen that ability to, help people from everywhere. But I also knew I wanted to help the people who wanted to do the work and wanted to make those changes. And so I actually sought out mentorship back in like 2018, going into 2019, when I was starting my private practice. There's a person here in the Seattle area who had been, a hypnotherapist and an instructor for decades at that point, Mary Lee LeBay. And so I sought her out because I had a friend that I'd been doing some collaborations with, a colleague who was a nutritionist and hypnotherapist. And she had studied with Mary Lee at Bastyr University, which is our local university here in Seattle, where they train people like naturopathic physicians, for example. And so I sought her out and said, okay, I know that you have your private practice with hypnotherapy. I know that you're working online. And she did a lot more of the spiritual side too, which is, I was trained very clinically. So that wasn't as much the type of work that I was doing, and I wanted to be more well-rounded. And so I sought her out. I also studied under Roy Hunter here in the Seattle area as well, fast forwarding a couple of years. So that was a wonderful experience. So I've been very fortunate between, being in the Portland area when I was in school, and then here in the Seattle area. There's so many incredible teachers, and then, going to conferences and learning from people from all over the world. And that's actually ended up how I met Cormac, was through the Ellmans. Cheryl and Larry Ellman were really wonderful mentors as well. And that's how we got connected, was because I had been studying with Cheryl for 2 or 3 years, and learned things like sleep talk because I was working with families. So like I said, I've just been really, really grateful and fortunate to have so many people who were kind of those pioneers that came before me that I've been able to learn from.
Nice. Cormac, back up, teleport again.
Yes,
Cormac,
yes. So
talk to me.
I would have to say,
got
I
it.
suppose I look at my parents now. My father died when I was quite young, when I was 14, but he would have always instilled a sense of confidence and in me, and entrepreneurship and thinking for yourself. My mom is a counselor herself, and so that was very useful. And she's always, again, shown a lot of belief in me. And I know when I was back around, when I was leaving my drug dealing job, as you say, with Pfizer, that I was a little bit unsure what I was going to do. I knew always what I wanted to do. I knew where I wanted to move, but like how I was going to do that. And she found actually in one of the newspapers this coaching course, and she was like, you got to go and do this. This is right up your street. This is what you have to do. And she was able to help me to do that. And I moved from across the country to go and study this course. It was before we had lots of online learning. And so I would say certainly My mum has been, she's always had a belief in me to say, like, just go and do it. Later then, in more recent years, I would have to say people like Sheila Granger, she's in the UK. She's a well-known hypnotherapist, and um, knowing and understanding like what having a coach can do for you, I had Sheila. Sheila became my coach, and um, she became my coach and mentor, I suppose. And she was able to kind of guide me on the road that she'd already taken. And she was able to say, you know what, you need to go to this conference, go here, meet people. She sought me out to run a training for her mailing list back in just a few years ago, and I ran a 2-day training on cocaine addiction. It's a big thing this side of the Atlantic. I'm not sure how big it is over there, but it's a big thing this side of the Atlantic. And I've been working with a lot of people. I've had featured articles in the newspapers here about my work. And as it happened, Sheila is also friends of Cheryl Ellman. And I invited Cheryl to come on to the training, and Cheryl was very impressed with it. And Cheryl said, "You got to run that for us for the Ellman School, and you got to come over and start speaking in conferences over in the US." And that was where I met Jodie, speaking at the Heartlands Conference in St. Louis. So I would place a lot of value on, coaches, mentors, networking, being at conferences, being in online groups, but even more so, like being there in the flesh. I place a lot of value on that because we never know who we're going to meet. We never know what domino is going to fall to start knocking more and more. That really opens up things in your career.
Nice, nice. Well, now that these roads are about to converge, I think it's time for this bus driver to hand it over to the tour guide. So, Scott, come on, why don't you bring this all together now?
So tell us how you guys, decided to work together. What brought you? You said you met in St. Louis. What was the driving moment? You both have a common background.
We do, yeah. So when we met in St. Louis, so like Cormac said, Cheryl had invited him and said, "You have to come over here and speak in St. Louis." And William Mitchell, who runs the Heartlands Conference in St. Louis, had come to our conference in Seattle and seen me speak and invited me to come and speak at his conference. And so that's really how that came together. Cormac was speaking on his cocaine addiction protocol. I was talking about trauma and how that, is a generational issue. And of course, trauma can also lead to things like addiction. And so we were introduced, Cheryl and Larry had a table there. They had multiple talks. I was helping Cheryl with one of her talks, and Larry was there to see me speak and Cormac speak for the first time. And so we were, spending a lot of time having a lot of conversations, and we saw each other's presentations. And it just really clicked basically for both of us that, we are really complementary, the things that we do. We have similar styles, but a lot of differences at the same time. And we wanted to learn, from each other, but also collaborate. So what happened was Cheryl had gone to, Cormac was smart and invited Cheryl to come to his cocaine addiction training. And so she and Larry were sponsoring his next training, which, this was in April and his training was at the end of May. And so she, was already partnering with him to do that and promoting that. And I was helping with the table and helping to promote it. And so Cormac just basically gave me an invitation. And after the conference, we were talking about how we could possibly work together. And he invited me and said, "Would you like to do a trauma module in my next cocaine addiction training? And are you interested in coming over to Ireland to help train in person?" And so couldn't pass up that opportunity to be able to just see if it worked. First of all, I've been to Ireland before and really enjoyed it and my mom's side of the family is from there. So I had taken my mom and my aunt to tour around. So I'd done the touristy parts. But I was just really interested to see how we would work together, because at that point, we thought it was a great idea, but we wanted to see how is this going to go over with other people, and how are we going to do as business partners. And so being in person, I thought was a really great opportunity to see how that would work. And Cormac, I'll let you talk about the reception that we got about that.
Yeah, because it really happened quite naturally. There wasn't too much work to it. It seemed like, looking back, it seemed like an inevitability. I heard Jodie speak in St. Louis, was very impressed with Jodie's professionalism and how she presents herself, and we got talking and realized, like Jodie said, our approaches complemented each other. And so when Jodie agreed to come to Dublin to run a module of my training, we just said, well, let's just see how it goes down. Let's see if people like it. So, but they didn't know that this was going to happen. They'd already paid for the training. They'd already seen what we were going to do. And we gave them this extra bonus module with Jodie, and it just went down fantastically well. And I think we knew then that we had something. And again, it's kind of evolved naturally. Now, with a lot of hard work as well, I will add that. But it has evolved naturally to where, like my approach was very much solution focused work, and Jodie brought a real wealth of knowledge from trauma informed work, and we were saying, like, let's like, this needs to come together. So like, we can work with someone for an issue, like if it's smoking or something, and I work with someone and we'll help them quit in one session, and for most people that's fine, but for lots of people, it was a coping strategy that they might need replacing. And so I use the analogy of whack-a-mole. You can knock it down like the addiction in one place, but sometime later it might pop up in a different guise somewhere else. It might be maybe they're putting on a lot of weight after they stopped smoking. So it was some kind of coping strategy. And so the way we explain it is that the solution focus might be whack-a-mole, might be, getting rid of that behavior for the person. But then there's what are the underlying causes that pops those things up in people's lives, and that was really where the trauma-informed side that Jodie brought in was very much going kind of beneath that surface and not just focusing on the behavior, but what are the underlying causes that create that in the first place. So what we realized that when we brought the two of them together, that when someone would come to us for a certain issue, we've been able to clear the issue, but also they're getting a level of transformation that they weren't even asking for, that they weren't even expecting, because they didn't know necessarily that something else from the past was the cause of their problems in the present. And that, so we can get rid of the behavior, but in order to make sure it doesn't pop up in some other form, we needed to bring in that also, that trauma-informed work. And, the more we talked about it, the more it made sense. And the more we realized, I haven't seen in my years in hypnotherapy, and Jodie hadn't either, that of these things brought together. They may have been brought together in different ways, but we hadn't seen trainers bringing them together and teach them in that way. So that kind of gave us the drive to tell people our message and say to them, this is what we're doing. If you'd like to know what we're doing, if you'd like to find out, if you'd like to learn what we're doing, this is what we're doing. And I mean, it's only, it's like in April, it'll just be, we're less than a year since we first even met each other. But we have, I suppose, created a lot in that time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, immediately, as soon as I
now,
did
do
that
you
bonus.
combine?
Oh, sorry, Scott.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to add that, when I added that trauma bonus to his addiction course, we weren't even halfway through, and people were asking us on break, when are you doing more? Yeah. When's the next thing you're doing together? And that's when we knew it really needed to be both of us together in this approach coming together. And so we, basically took some time to put together our own trainings that we could combine our different modalities. And then we had a training in October post-conference from Mid-America. And so that was in October in Chicago. And it was such a great success that now we have a full year-long program together, a full certification, as well as different live trainings. And we have one, another addiction and trauma training coming up because it was so popular. So I feel like Cormac was right. It was just this inevitability that as soon as we started working together, everything really clicked.
We've also noticed things like...
And you found out that combining your programs,
Mm-hmm.
have you found out that combining your programs have created a whole new avenue for patients?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what, also, Scott, for therapists as well, things that we've noticed that people have liked, they've liked the energy of like the masculine and feminine coming together. They've liked the different kind of backgrounds from Europe and the US. They've liked the solution focus and trauma informed. So there's a good few dynamics that people have liked, and lots of people have told us that they've had to make choices before. So some people might like choose a man or choose a woman, but feel like that they might have missed out on some levels of the different dynamic, I suppose. So these are some of the feedback that we're getting from people that we weren't really expecting to hear when we started out. We just said, let's create something of value to give people. But we're getting a lot of this kind of feedback that I suppose it's really encouraging.
Sure.
So I got a great question for you guys. How do we get a hold of you? How do our viewers get a hold of you?
That's a great question.
Yes.
So you could find us all over social media, that's for sure. We also have a website. It's SFTI Hypnosis.com. So it stands for Solution Focused Trauma Informed. So SFTI Hypnosis. So they can go there, but they can find us, individually as Jodie Solberg and Cormac Colleran on all the social media channels, as well as SFTI Hypnosis on things like YouTube and Facebook.
Group.
Yeah, so we have Facebook group. We have free trainings coming up and on our YouTube channel. So yeah, absolutely. They can look us up and see what we have going on. And we do have our live trainings. Like I said, we have one coming up in Florida. So me being from the Seattle area and Cormac being from Dublin area, the nice thing is we want to try to get out of the rain in the middle of winter. So we are going to be in the sunshine later this month. And so we do have in-person as well as online opportunities to work with us.
Well, Scott's in Florida, and he can tell you there's a lot of rain in Florida too, guys.
There is a lot of rain, but it's warm rain. So it's very different than never seeing the sun. I've spent a lot of time in Florida, and it's like an hour and might be super heavy rain, but then you actually see the sun. And so I'll take that in the middle of January any day.
Nice.
In
nice.
Seattle, they have two mountain ranges, one in the east and one in the west. And when the sun finally clears, it's about 10 o'clock in the morning when you see the sun. And then when it goes down, it goes behind another mountain range. So you only have sun for like 6 hours if it's not cloudy and raining at the time. And then the one day summer falls on, you got to be there.
You got to be there to see it on the one day. Exactly. Yeah, I grew up on the western mountains, and now I'm in kind of the northern mountains that kind of cut between the state, cut it between east and west. And yeah, absolutely. It comes, up on one side, goes down on the other side. So you're absolutely right. We have a very small window where the sun's right in the middle.
We've actually found it uncanny how the Irish weather seems to be very similar to the Pacific Northwest. Yeah. It doesn't get terribly cold in winter. It doesn't get very warm in summer. There's a shorter range of temperature, and there's clouds most of the time. Yeah.
Man, it's pretty cold here in California today. It's 59.
It's so cold. I feel so bad for you.
Yeah. We're in freezing temperatures for this past few days,
Oh my
even
goodness.
even
Yeah, colder
daytime.
than usual there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And here I'm used to having snow because I am at the base of the mountains now. So I moved out pre-pandemic. We're building right in the middle of the pandemic, but I moved back out of the city to the mountains again. 'Cause like I said, I grew up further out. I like being out. And I'm used to having snow in the winter, being right here at the foothills, and it's actually warmer than usual here. So I'm used to having the freezing temperatures. Cormac's not, and I think we swapped.
Yeah.
Scott, do you have any other questions?
Um, one more question about how do you find it working so far apart? Do you find it joining by Zoom call? Do you try to plan more get-togethers?
Yes. Funnily enough, Scott, a good friend of mine um, asked me that a few months ago and said, like, do you not find it really difficult with there's an 8 hour time difference? And it was the first time that I actually considered that it could have been a problem. Both of us were just very like, didn't even consider it to be a problem. So sure, like for me, a lot of our meetings will start 10 p.m. my time after my kids are gone to bed, 10 p.m. my time till maybe 2 a.m. A lot of them are around that time. And we've just been excited about what we're doing, so we've just been getting on with it. We do Zoom calls at night. Sometimes it's early morning for me, and it could be late night for Jodie. Sometimes we've had to. It's been my daytime, and it's been like 3 a.m. for Jodie. But honestly, we've just gotten on with it. When we have to get things done, we just get them done.
Yeah, luckily
Nice.
we're both night people, so that's helpful.
Yeah.
That always works out. But when you are really excited about what you're doing, when I'm up and doing a meeting at 6 o'clock in the morning and it's 2 in the afternoon for him, when he's like, "Hey, I have some time in between clients. Should we get on and plan this or do a coaching call for this?" Like, let's do it because it is something that we're really excited about. So it hasn't been a big obstacle. We've just figured it out. Like I said, we work around him being able to be with his kids in the evening, and that's the priority. And then we can do business after, and that works out great. And then we do have our live trainings and we have conferences. So that is one thing that we do is we coordinate those schedules of, okay, once a quarter or so we do a live training where we can be in the same place. So if we need to record things or need to plan and do things, we can do that. And then we have our conference schedule throughout the year. So we've been really strategic around working together, and it's working out well. So I'm grateful for that. I feel like sometimes, on the West Coast, it's a little easier to work with people internationally in a lot of places, just because it's the difference kind of works out, and because we work for ourselves, we have that flexibility, which is also helpful.
So let me ask you this. So the dynamics here now. So you're traveling, you got the family, you got the kids, all this stuff going on. So the dynamics is with the relationships and everything too. So how does that all work out? Do you bring the kids with you? Are the families coming with you? What's going on here? How's the dynamics working out here?
Yes, well, we are. I haven't planned yet for bringing the kids, so I'll be traveling stateside. I think maybe 5 times this year. Um, they may come for one of them. I mean, a lot of it will be going over speaking at a conference, running training, maybe working at a conference. It's not necessarily the trip that my wife and kids are going to enjoy, but um, but it's like I'm taking them to the North Pole next month to do a Santa Claus visit. We're able to squeeze in time for those things. It certainly is. I mean, when I went to Chicago last year, I was over for 10 days. It was the longest I'd ever been away from them. That was difficult. I gotta say, I'm doing calls with them every evening, and they're really curious about it's evening time there and it's daytime in the US, and really curious about that. We're kind of working it. There will be times where they will come to the States with me, and I'm guessing probably in the summertime we'll arrange for a holiday, and when I'm finished work there, then they'll all come over and join.
Nice.
Yeah, I think it's fun to watch because he gives them little tours wherever we are. He'll give little tours of the city or tours of, that where we're training. So he's always out on break from training with them and making sure he says goodnight when on our lunch breaks and things like that. And he is treating them to special trips that's just them time, just family time, which I think is wonderful. So they have a lot of family holidays and things planned. And that's honestly why we do what we do is because, he's going to be able to, we're both going to be able to, really drop down on seeing individual clients because we both still run our practices as well as training. And that's really the goal, is for us to be able to really just work with people we really want to work with, then some of that time out so that he can be home during the day with his kids. That's why we do those late night meetings after they go to bed, because he wants to have that quality time with them. And so, for him to be more present during the week so that, he can then do the training and only be gone for certain periods of time, but then say, hey, because I was gone, guess what? We get to go to the North Pole, or we get to go to some tropical beach, or, we get to do those things. He gets to do that with his family. And I think that that's really key. And on my end, my husband also travels for work about half of the month. And so, we have our own business travels. And then whenever we want to do our own, quality time and trips, we can do that. We also did move where other people vacation and where other people come to get away. And so I'm very fortunate that I live in that every day. And it is really beautiful. And so, we like to, relax and do things here more when we're not traveling so much, because we have tried. I've gone with my husband on business trips before. He's tried to go with me on those. It really, like Cormac was saying, it's not the most fun, when for the other person or the other people when you're busy working all the time. So I think, the goal is that we have those concentrated times that we work, and then we have more time for play outside of that.
So have your spouses met each other?
No,
Not yet,
no, they
no.
haven't.
No.
No,
That should
yeah.
be on the bucket list.
Yeah, absolutely. That I'm sure that'll be happening very soon as well.
No, yeah, they're very supportive. My husband's all excited about everything that we're doing, and it really has been so successful, even so quickly. And they know that we are on the right track, so they're very happy to send us to work and then to receive us when we come back.
Scott, any last questions?
I'm good.
Okay. Well, we certainly appreciate interviewing both of you.
Thank
So
you.
it's been
Thank
definitely a
you.
pleasure.
I
It's
really
been great
appreciate it.
traveling down. I guess we could say the dual highway that leads to the super highway here. It looks like.
That's right.
Yes.
Where the
So,
two roads converge, like Cormac
there
Yeah.
we
said.
go. Yes, yes. We usually do one, so two's a little bit different here on the Hypno
Keep,
Traveler.
keeping you on your toes.
Yeah,
Well,
so we
we're gonna keep you here now. I'm gonna ask you both at the same time. You can decide who's gonna go first because this is the big closing question. Okay. What are your
Okay.
words of wisdom for our viewers?
words of wisdom.
Oh,
I,
that's a
I,
good silence.
yeah, I would certainly say, like, I don't want to sound cliche, but the words that are in my head are follow your dreams. So, what I mean is, we've all met so many people that like love hypnotherapy, that have dabbled in it, that would love to leave their 9 to 5 job, but that they just, something prevents them and they're afraid to do it. And it's fine if it's not someone's dream and they just want it to be a hobby, then it's fine. But if they do want to jump into it 2 feet, just find a way of doing it and jump in, follow that dream, because you can be out there at the end of your career, complaining about what you didn't do, or you can take action and just jump in with both feet and just back yourself and go for it.
Nice. Thanks, Cormac.
Mm,
Come on,
That's
Jody. You
great.
got
Yeah,
some words of
I
wisdom
love
for
that.
us, huh?
Absolutely. Yeah. And, for me, I would say that change really does come from within. When we want to do something, when we want to make a change, it's up to us to do that. And, when we are training, we just had a coaching call earlier with some of our trainees, and we were having that conversation that, we can want something so much for someone else, but it really has to come from within. And so we need to focus on what we can control and release the rest, and just, hold other people and hold life, with that open hand, where we can allow that change to happen. But we need to focus on our personal growth and journey as much as we focus on other people's. And so taking care of ourselves first and foremost helps us show up as our best for everyone else in our lives. And so that is definitely something I would want to share with anyone who's listening.
Nice, nice. Follow
Thank
your
you.
dreams, and change comes from within. Wonderful. Wonderful. Okay, guys, it's been a pleasure traveling down your highway. We've
Yeah.
certainly enjoyed it. Thanks for taking the bus with us and allowing us to go down your road. We certainly enjoyed it. For our viewers out there, we hope you've enjoyed the show. We've certainly enjoyed it. We hope you come back next week. We're glad you're here. Please like us. Please subscribe. If you like us, give us a thumbs up. If you think we're assholes, we don't care. Just give us a thumbs down. We hope to see you back here next week. Thanks for coming.
Wow, what a trip. Thanks for taking that journey with us today. Please like us, share us, and enlighten us with your views of the topics we drove into today. We appreciate you and love reading your comments. Thanks again, and we hope to see you back on the bus next week. That's right.